Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar, using CRM and marketing automation to nurture and enroll leads, presented by HEM, Higher Education Marketing. And if you're new to HEM, we are a full-service digital marketing company serving only educational institutions, and that can be schools of all types around the world in multiple languages. My name is Archie Pollock. I'm the UK and Europe Regional Manager, and I'm presenting today alongside my colleague Scott Cross, who's the Regional Manager for North America. Hello, Scott. Can you hear me, Scott?
Don't you hate it when you press mute to be considerate and then you forget? Hello, Archie.
Hello, great, you're back. So on that note, we're going to have the microphones on mute throughout the webinar, so that helps us to cover a lot of ground during the webinar itself, and then later we'll take some questions if there are any from the audience. And you can send your questions just on the right hand side of the GoToWebinar menu. Just submit yours when you have a question. You can see it there in the questions section. So another note, everyone who's registered for the webinar, even if they weren't able to attend, will receive a recording of the presentation as well as the slide deck too. So that should arrive via email in the next couple of days. So let's get moving. Scott, do you want to maybe kick us off?
Sure. Yeah, the first point of business is really just to walk through what we're going to be talking about today in our presentation about CRMs, though the first topic is before we even get to the CRM. It's how to create and utilize forms that people will use to fill out their information, their contact info. We want to create these in a way that help feed the right data into your CRM that you want to capture. And then we'll talk within the system itself about segmentation of that data, prioritization of that data, how to and why to do both. And then we'll look at, based on the work you do in segmentation and prioritization, it allows a lot of automation. So the system automatically carrying out some tasks for you, which makes things super easy or easier. And then we're also going to get into reporting, the not so often used tool within a CRM that allows you to measure how effective a communication channel has been and how effective members of your team have been at following up on these contacts and enrolling them. And that gets us to kind of the world overall, the world of data. We've got a recruitment pipeline today that is quite various. We have many digital channels, your website, social media, you have ads that go to landing pages, and you have, requests for information forms in many places that all drop data coming in. And that's in addition to those, you have offline, in person, or even if you hold some virtual meetings or gatherings, it's great practice to collect contact information any chance you can to basically offer to engage people who express interest. And in doing so, as you collect their first name, last name, email, at the very least, it all comes into some place. Where's that going to be? And the same goes for the agents, the partners, the people you work with who may be sending you names from around the world. And so we're looking for one common place to collect all this contact information.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, Scott, to take a slight step back and discuss, what a CRM actually is. And you've kind of alluded to it there by saying it's a place where a lot of these different information sources come together. Normally, it's a cloud-based solution. It's essentially a tool to help you manage your customer relations and help people along the sales pipeline most of the time. But you can see, there's different types of contacts that you can have. There's leads, so prospective students. There's your current students themselves, there's agents and partners, and there's past students too. So you can use CRM tools to communicate with each of these groups en masse, or you can do it individually. But essentially, as Scott touched on, it's there to nurture leads, it's there to report on progress towards enrollment, to communicate with leads, and all the while integrate with other office systems that you have, maybe email, maybe calendars, and we're going to go through this in a bit more detail as we progress. And what is marketing automation? Well, it kind of comes as hand in hand with CRM. Really, most but not all CRMs provide marketing automation features. The majority certainly do, but they're there to help remove some of the manual processes that are involved in particularly the sales and the admissions process. So, for example, creating mass email campaigns for inquiries from your online ads, or assigning scores to different leads, having different segments or lists of your database. So data management is involved, analytics as well, reporting, integration with classroom management systems. These can all have elements of marketing automation attached to them too.
And keep in mind, as we put systems like CRMs and marketing automation into play, we do so with the prospect in mind, with that prospective student, and we basically measure it, as we always do at HEM, in their journey from that initial inquiry to their application, to their enrollment, and then starting class. And just really simply laying in where a CRM can play a part. When they fill out that very first inquiry form, perhaps we can categorize them by program, their program of interest. When they come into the system, we begin to follow up with them. You can assign a lead owner or a member of your team who's responsible for following up with that individual prospect. And that may be categorized by country. You may want one lead owner per country or per language because of their specialty. Could be because of program because of their specialty. Over time, as you begin to connect with those leads, you'll want to begin to determine their intensity of interest. What is their level of interest? And also, over time, begin to qualify them. Are they a quality lead? Do they meet our prerequisites academically, financially, and by availability? So these are some of the things we're going to begin applying as we begin to use a CRM at its most effective level.
Time for a poll?
Absolutely, always.
Poll number one. So we're putting a question out to the attendees today, and the question is, when contact information is coming from new leads or from incoming prospects, where does that information go for you at the moment? Is it going to a CRM? Is it going to an Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet? Or is it going somewhere else, maybe to your inbox or something?
And this screen that's just popped up allows you to just click the one of your choice and let us know what you're experiencing currently. Thank you for your engagement. Folks are voting as we speak. And I think we have nearly everyone, so I'm going to go ahead and share the results here. And overwhelmingly, we have a lot of CRM users, Archie.
That's quite, I'm surprised by that, but that's interesting because I guess people are interested to know maybe, or to review what they're doing with their current CRM and have a bit of a rethink, or maybe re-strategizing some of the elements of their CRM.
Yeah, I think you'll find the content that we have here isn't just to get you interested in a CRM, but how to get the most out of it. So I think everyone will find this a useful time. Thank you for voting.
Well, let's jump into the first of a few features that we're going to look at across many CRMs. And the first tool we're going to talk about is using forms to feed the data into your system. And there's actually steps we can take before the data even reaches the CRM that are going to make the CRM run more smoothly. So you'll want to have a variety of different forms in different areas of your website or your digital environment, which are there for prospects at different stages in the buying journey. So for example, on the screen, in the early stages, prospects are just researching. They're going to want to see or share some of the basic information they have in exchange for more information. So perhaps they give their name, maybe their email address, maybe their phone number. And as they progress through the sales pipeline and get further down into the deeper stages, you can ask more targeted questions or more advanced questions, which go into more detail. So these questions might be a bit harder, but they also qualify the prospect as well. So let's say if you have a form that's to set up a campus visit or a campus tour of some kind, you might want to ask them not just what program they're interested in, but also about their education level at the moment. And it becomes a bit of a balancing act, because the more information that you get, the better, and the more qualified the conversation that you can have with the prospective student. But asking too many questions or asking unnecessary or difficult questions can actually put off people who would otherwise be relevant. So it's
Right.
a fine balancing act. Yeah. And so incoming leads really should look a bit like this. You can see that the form links to the data here, and we can categorize into certain data points. So here we have the type of contact. Is it an applicant, a lead? Perhaps it's a current student or alumni, and their stage in the journey. So it could be a new inquiry, or it could be someone who's much further down the sales process through to enrollment. Which program are they interested in? Which campus potentially are they interested in? And also, which channel did they come through? Was it through an advertising campaign? Was it through a form in the website? So this is really, your baseline. It's a foundation for understanding your lead flow and also for contextualizing your follow-up as well. So, yeah, that's all I want to say about that.
Yeah, and it's really the introduction, as you say. It's the first glimpse of, yeah, wow, we're able to collect all this data, which gets us to begin to think, what are the ways that we can segment and prioritize that data to really put it to work for us? And this is up to you. Each school is unique, and each recruiting and admissions team has unique assignments and sometimes priorities. So your CRM should be able to allow you to segment and create lists of people by program of interest, by language or country, by their stage in that journey from inquiry to enrollment that we saw earlier, or by the source, where, what source led them to us, or any of those pre-qualifying questions. And what you want to be able to do is take that big long list that Archie just showed us, break it down into multiple smaller lists. As you see here, we have a group of segments or lists, each of which has just smaller groups of contacts in it that we can click to open just those contacts. And those can be people who are currently enrolled. We'll still want to communicate with them at some point to improve retention. So that's an important segment. To go by source, we have a group of contacts who just came from the Google pay-per-click desktop campaign, our ad campaign, or just those contacts who have been contacted, who we've had a reply from via email, or we've connected with them on the phone or SMS, and the conversation is maybe leading to get more serious. Another handy one, as we talked about, is understanding or creating a list of those who are assigned leads to an individual on your team. So one member of our team, Chris, has a smaller number of contacts that they're responsible for. And think of the effectiveness and efficiency of their day when they come into the CRM in the morning. They can open just their list, right? So they can focus their eyes and their attention on who's most interested and top of their list, rather than wading through all those other names that may be involved. So super helpful way to utilize what a CRM can do for you. When it comes to prioritizing your prospects, you can do it a couple of ways. You can approach it by prioritizing how well they fit into your program. You may have demographics you want them to meet, or an employment status that's preferred or required, perhaps especially for graduate programs, or maybe their education level and backgrounds overall is important for you. You can also prioritize them by their level of interest, of course. How much have they interacted with your website? Have they opened and clicked on your emails? Have they filled out forms that you put out via social media? So this allows you a couple of ways to kind of think, how do I want to decide who are the top or first people within our CRM contact database that we want to reach out to? And we recommend that you take this next step, and this is initially outside the CRM. Just do this, in a Word doc or wherever you want to do it, but create priority groups A, B, and C. Your highest, most important priority group A, these are your folks who have indicated your program of interest that is maybe your top priority. They meet the educational requirement. They filled out the application for that program. So keep in mind here, we're talking distinctly about that type of form. They didn't just fill out the contact us or the download the e-newsletter subscription. They filled out a much more intense form indicating their intense interest. So that brings them to priority group A, and they're reading and clicking on our emails. So that builds one group. In your middle group, you've got folks who have identified the program of interest. They meet your requirements, but perhaps they filled out that kind of lower impact form online. Perhaps they did it in the last 24 hours, so that bumps them into, priority group B. So they've got a good score, kind of that medium importance. And then you've got priority group C that maybe have filled out one of those very early stage forms that have very little information. So we don't know what program they're interested. We don't know their education background, and they haven't yet opened our emails yet. We want to be clear to say, don't forget these folks. Do reach out to them. Make sure, and we'll talk about automations in a minute, but set up an automation for this priority group to receive an email once a quarter, just periodically, whether it's an e-newsletter, but you want to stay in front of them because it's important that you don't forget about them. They've indicated interest initially. We just need to understand what their timeline is. It may not be our timeline. So don't forget about priority group C.
That's a good point, Scott, about timeline, because we all in the industry work towards various timelines, whether it's enrollment periods or kind of certain seasons of the year, if you like. And let's not forget that these people are on a shopping journey that can happen really any time of the year. They can begin and come in at the top of the funnel, off season, right in the middle of the season. It really does depend on a few things. And they might drop in somewhere halfway through that sales journey. And there's let's keep in mind that this is a wide open field. And with priority C group, you may wonder to yourself, what would we say to them? How would we keep in contact with these people? But for those people, you're kind of putting them out to pasture a little bit, but you're just, as Scott said, keeping front of mind, sending them content. If you're writing blogs or you're doing social media posting frequently, you can share some of that content in the newsletter that you send out, whether it's a monthly or quarterly basis, just so that when the time comes. And for a lot of people at the moment, there is a glut of interested parties due to the COVID situation. There are people that have wanted to study, whether it's at home or abroad, and they maybe 2022 is the time, and this is where you want to remind them that you're around and you're open to business.
Exactly. And this is what it looks like. So if you've built that list or group of prioritizations outside your CRM, here's how you build it within. You simply go to kind of create a new segment or whatever it's called within your CRM and add filter on filter on filter. So we're choosing what kind of contact type goes into this list. They're all leads. So they're all active inquiring folks. You can choose what country they're from, if there's a specific country from which you're recruiting. Program, again, you choose specifically what fits for you. And then stage, at the contact stage means we've been in touch with them. So they are at this higher priority. We've had that initial conversation. It's time to try to take them to the next level.
Great. Well, let's crack on with poll number 2. And it's a straightforward question. So how many of you in the audience categorize or prioritize your leads in a way that Scott has just highlighted? Is this something that you do? Yes or no?
The voting is open. Just click on yes or no for you. Awesome. The votes are coming in. I think we're about counted. Whoops, it jumped away from me. Here we go. Hold on. Got it. All right, I'm going to stop voting and share the results. They are overwhelmingly engaging. You guys are prioritizing.
I'm impressed, I must say. That's a bit higher than I thought. That's great. Good to see.
Yes, good.
Okay, well, I mean, we've talked about segmentation and prioritization. So once we've set up those rules and we've kind of got those foundations in place, we can start talking about getting to work, and automation, dynamic content is a big part of that. So we're trying to make life a bit easier for ourselves in numerous ways. So for example, where possible, you want to set up auto reply emails as standard. These are usually used as thank you for your inquiry or acknowledging some form of interaction via your digital environment. And also you want to set up how team members are assigned different prospects, so rules about who gets what, and that can be usually done by program, by country, by language skills, and also, as we've touched on with the segmentation, setting up automation so that the segments are created automatically. So people are assigned to different segments on a live basis, depending on, again, which program they're from, which country they're from, or which program they're interested in, sorry, or which country or language they speak. And then one of the benefits of this whole kind of segmentation is categorizing into lists. And then you can see here the example on your screen. We have the HEM template form. When somebody fills in that form, they have an option here, and this is a minimal example, but you have either nursing or bookkeeping to choose from. And if they choose one of those specific programs, they're sent out the autoresponder email, which acknowledges their interest for that specific course. So that can be very complicated, or it can be very straightforward. It really depends on your abilities within the system to use it and what kind of capabilities your system has. So building automated emails into your system and having that auto response mechanism is really truly an important time-saving task. You should try and take advantage of your CRM's ability to build that email template in a format that's branded to your school. So on the left-hand side, you can see that's the view within the CRM email builder. It's personalized with the name and the greeting there, and also it's personalized towards the program that they're interested in as well. And then you can see on the right-hand side how it's branded, and that branding should be strong, and it should be consistent across all of your email templates. And this is the case also for SMS as well. If you are sending out SMS messages, make sure to try and personalize them where you can. If there's any kind of branding or branding message that you can put alongside that text message, then that's great too, providing obviously they've submitted their mobile number to you. And then another type of automation is the email workflow. And the example on the screen you can see from email 1 through to email 8 is an example of a drip campaign. So this would be assigned to someone who inquires, and each email thereafter, whether it's the same day or the next day or over the course of a couple of weeks, has slightly different content to reflect the personality and the specific offerings that your institution offers. So the branded template on the right-hand side shows how that could look, and you can see also in that example some links to the relevant areas in the website for further engagement. So it's not just about here's the information in the email, it's about click here to find out more and having that traffic coming back to the website, hopefully for deeper engagement and further down the pipeline. So you can set up different workflows with different types of information. The vast majority of CRMs have this capability, and it does just depend on how the prospect inquired and what they inquired about, how you might want to treat them at that point.
I like that you referenced the hyperlinks that send folks for more information, because you're right. A good use of those is to send them back to your website. You know, emails are designed to re-engage folks and to build your organic traffic to the website. That's super important. There's another tool within the CRM that can use those links to really kind of track engagement, and that is by putting assets into the CRM. And assets are something really as simple as a brochure, right? We all have one, whether it's one page or many, and it's a digital file, right? A PDF. Rather than linking it, or rather than attaching it to some emails as we often do when we send them as a one-off, it's most useful within the CRM system to upload that digital file into the CRM, and the system will assign it a URL, a web address, right? And so you can hyperlink within your email that we just saw to download or learn more, and they can, by clicking on the link in the email rather than any attachment, they click on the link, they see the brochure, they can download it and keep it for themselves and read through it in their own time. And what's
Yeah.
most useful here is tracking, right? Because now because it's a link within our system, we can track how many people clicked on it. So we know not only how many over time, but specifically who, because that's demonstrating a level of engagement.
Yeah, I think it's important what you said there, Scott, about embedding the information via a link in the email, because if you are adding especially large attachments to an email, it can obviously trigger spam filters as well. So it does allow it to fly under the radar more often in that respect.
Exactly, and it's just scary these days to open an attachment from anybody that's even someone you've been in touch with. So yeah, it works in many factors. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've talked about all the kind of strategic stuff and prioritization, segmentation, setting up the infrastructure, if you like, of your CRM. So let's talk a bit more about the day-to-day stuff. So making daily tasks more efficient. And your CRM, one of its main jobs is really to make your life easier and to have everything under one roof. So, for example, making calls through the system is a real benefit. So this means you wouldn't have to pick up your phone manually. You can make calls, you can take notes on the call, you can even record the call if that's permitted where you are. And if any of you have had experience working in companies where calls are done manually, or maybe that's something you have to do at the moment, you'll be aware that it's not the most efficient way of doing things. So if you have a CRM and it has the capability to make phone calls through the system, we highly recommend that you do that because it is so much more time efficient. And if we bring back the idea of templates, the same goes for text messaging as well. So we talked about email templates and autoresponders. It's the same with SMS. So most CRM systems will allow you to send SMS, and they will allow you to have SMS templates. So instead of having to manually type out the message each time, you can choose from a selection of templates that maybe answer some FAQs or are there as a kind of manual autoresponder, or indeed as part of an autoresponder. So it's really just there to help you be as efficient as possible. And there are some systems that would let you to allow you to do that. The SMS just the same as the email. And in terms of notes, you want to be making notes within the contact profile itself so that all of the records are visible to any member of staff in your team, or perhaps part of another team who opens the contact information and looks at the history of contact with that individual. So in terms of how does that simplify things, well, it makes things a lot smoother, and it makes the process a lot smoother between staff members as well, not just for yourself. Obviously, that's handy to look back on the history of contact you've had with someone in the past, but if at some point your job is over and you're passing it to another member of a team, maybe further down the line, the admissions team or the enrollment team, it also helps with that admin perspective as well, where they can look back and see the communication, and it allows for a more contextualized conversation further down the line. So there's a few advantages to that.
Yeah, these notes I find are a commonly overlooked, really fundamental feature of the CRM. I mean, people talk about using CRMs or even systems like MailChimp or Constant Contact, and they are missing this one feature where you're able to type notes of, yes, they're very interested, asked a lot of very important questions. Travel visa is a critical issue for them, or education relevance is, you can make notes based on what your conversation is. It also allows you, if possible, you can manually update from, I've attempted to call them 3 times to I've contacted them, or they're going to fill out an application, or whatever it might be. But this is one of those places, like you say, that I can take notes, and anyone who opens the system in 15 minutes is going to see my note, and that's going to be very helpful. So we're going to our last of all of our chapters here with feature 6 of reporting. And this is, as we said before, taking a lot of that data we've just been working on gathering and kind of crunching it, so to speak. And the first thing we want to do, of course, is ask one more poll question. And this is, how often do you do it? How are you able to get to reporting on your day-to-day basis? Is it once a week? Is it once a month? Or is it the kind of thing that it's easy to put off? We know that.
Is it that it's this time of the year when the manager's asking for the report and you're at panic stations and scrabbling to find some useful data?
Exactly.
I'll be curious to see what the results are for this poll.
Because sometimes that's the only report you're able to do, because you're, like you say, you're under that pressure. They ask you for it. You're like, oh, I got to do it.
Yeah.
But the ones in April and July, I just kind of pushed off. Okay, so the votes are in, and here come the results. And yeah, true to form.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And often it's because this is a really common reply, is that, oh gosh, reports, how do I find the time to do that? Because it takes time often to find the data, to then do the math or the computation, whatever it might be, yourself. What we want to encourage you to do is look for a CRM that does the reporting with you and for you. A really simple, basic report in a CRM is to look at your leads by stage. And you can measure whatever period of time, the past month, the past term, semester, or the past year. And it'll tell you how many are at new inquiry, how many are at contacted. One thing, not just to see the numbers, but we also want to consider what actions can we take based on this pie chart. And for example, one would be, I see 118 people are at the incomplete application stage. That's 29% of our contact profile in the CRM. Well, that's 118 people that you'd want to begin to call right away to say, hey, I see you've started your application, but you didn't complete it quite yet. Are there any questions I can answer for you? Can I help you to finish that? It identifies very easily that low-hanging fruit of someone who's already expressed interest, and maybe we can get some enrollments out of that group.
Yeah, and I think that there's obviously many different school types, and some might not have an application process quite the same as others. And for them, their reality might be more fixed towards things like has downloaded a brochure or has downloaded a price list. And even just those little nuggets of information can help you to follow up with that lead with context and say, hi, John, I saw that you inquired with us and downloaded the price list. You know that this person has an idea of how much your courses cost, and you can have that conversation about pricing and ask if there's any questions or anything you can help with. And the stages hopefully in your CRM will be customizable towards the specific reality that you have in your own school.
I was just going to say, that's exactly right. You want to try to find a CRM that'll allow you to use your terms in these stages so that you can customize it to your realities of what you have to offer and how you measure people's interest. So the next report is, again, kind of data facing. We're trying to whittle down how many leads and enrollments do we get from each source or channel. So these are each of the channels through which leads come to us, or prospective students. The website, your pay-per-click or ad campaigns, your networking, your agents. You could even include live events in here. And what it allows you to do is take a group of these things. For example, I've highlighted just the paid ads online that we have active, and we can see how many leads they brought us and how many enrollments and the enrollment ratio based on that. This allows us to really look back and say, okay, over this past period of time, how much money did we allocate to this effort? And did we get enough enrollments to pay for that, to more than pay for that? So was it literally worth our time, worth our while? In some cases, you may allocate more of your team's time than actual finances. Still, it's an important measurement of, was it worth that allocation? So here we're truly able to measure ROI just by going through the CRM. And then some of the other reports can really help in terms of understanding your team. You've got a recruitment team. Each member, if they're, as you identify the lead owner of specific incoming leads, you can tally how many leads each member of your team receives, how many they've contacted, and what's their contact percentage. And then ultimately, how many have enrolled, and what's each member's enrollment percentage, each member of your team. This is, of course, a great resource to help hand out accolades, right, to the top performing members. It's also a great opportunity for coaching, to look at those who aren't performing, to learn more about why that might be and see what you can do to improve that. And another report that comes in that same spirit of coaching and improvement is what we call speed to lead. And that is when a new contact profile drops into your CRM, they filled out a form, how quickly do the members of your team follow up with them? And we all understand that that is a really incredibly important metric, that if you're able to reach them in the first 24 hours, they're X amount more likely to ultimately enroll because of that interest you showed in them after they expressed interest in you. So again, these speed to lead reports can provide you good or bad data on their percentage of leads followed up with, or the average time it took them to follow up with a lead. So again, reports can be super useful in a CRM, and we recommend you either look for those in your system that you're shopping for or put them to use in the system you currently have.
I think it's a really good point about the coaching aspect there, Scott, because especially with speed to lead, if somebody inquires with you either through their mobile phone or through their desktop, and you instantly reach out to them via email or even better phone call, then you know that they're, if you can do that within 5 minutes or 10 minutes, then you know that that person is there or thereabouts with the device that they use, and they should be able to take a call, or they should be able to respond to your email. So it definitely improves the likelihood of conversion.
And sure, you might surprise them. They might be a little spooked, like, wow, you responded quickly, but right immediately they go to relief, like, wow, I'm really psyched that you're taking my interest so seriously. Let's talk, So it's very effective.
And before we go to the questions, we've used a lot of screen grabs today from a system called Motic, which is one that we work with a lot with schools of different types. Or perhaps, you've got some questions about your own CRM that you're using, and maybe you have some consultation questions that you'd like to speak to us about. By all means, request a free demo with us. We'd be happy to have a conversation to answer any questions and help you through. Let's face it, sometimes CRMs can provide challenges, and if you need any assistance with that, Scott or I would be happy to discuss it with you. Scott most likely on the right time zone, which would make more sense, I think. So if you'd like to request a free demo, simply click yes please, and Scott or a member of his team will reach out to you and sort that out.
Yeah, and even if it's looking at your current system and how you're using it, and if there are ways you can better use it, or standard practices like the workflows that Archie was showing us, we're happy to walk through that with you and try to help you optimize that for sure. So thank you. Okay, so the last things we want to share with you is kind of the next time you'll see us in this format is at our next webinar, which will be in that first week of January, January 6th. It's going to be on the topic of Google Analytics for education marketers. And a lot like we looked at CRM, kind of the core, most effective uses of a system, we're going to do the same for Google Analytics. What can a school use this for to help you improve your admissions and recruitment?
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. It's a really interesting area, the analytics, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
Got any questions? So there's a question there about, can contacts be entered manually? Well, I guess, the vast majority, 99% of CRMs, I guess, that you can. Normally they have an importation element as well, where you can import a CSV or an Excel file.
Yes.
Which is great. It saves a lot of time, of course, in manual input. But I would always, before you do anything like that, always make sure that when you're importing documents that you match the data field to the specific data field and make sure it's the same name on both the system and the document that you're importing, because otherwise it can create a real mess and it can be very difficult to backtrack. And through experience, I can tell you from previous roles, that's a path you don't want to tread. So
Exactly right. And yeah, I have heard of a couple of different schools using the CRM. You can build forms within your CRM, a little like a basic landing page where you just put out a form. It's like a Google form, name, first name, last name, email, phone, address, whatever, program of interest. And by building that form, the CRM can assign that web page a URL, so to speak. So it has a web address. When people arrive to meet you at a fair, at a table, or at your front desk, if you're having a live open house, for example, you can simply open up that web page, pivot the laptop and say, welcome, glad you're here, please sign in. And by them filling out that basic information form, it's going to drop directly into the CRM, and you can have it set up so that it identifies them as having come from the open house event or this particular in-person fair. So that's another great way of utilizing that manual entry, if you will.
great. Well, I think we want to be conscious of people's time, Scott. So maybe we should call it a day there, maybe.
Yes, we've run a bit long, and we appreciate you hanging with us. Hope you found it helpful and useful. And we will be in touch with you. Please keep an eye out for our future webinars beyond here. We're glad you've spent this time with us today.